There was once a kingdom that had never moved. For 300 years, its castle had stood upon the same black hill, beneath the same silver moon, overlooking the same quiet valley. The people of the kingdom believed this was how castles were meant to be. Stone belonged to the earth. Kings belonged to their thrones. And night belonged to sleep. But they were wrong, because every night, at exactly midnight, the castle moved. No one knew where it went. And no one, except the king and queen, knew that it happened at all. But before we step inside this moving castle, if you enjoy quiet stories filled with mystery, magic, and faraway worlds, you can subscribe to Fable Glow and join us for more journeys like this one. Now, close your eyes and let the story begin. King Adrian had been warned about the castle before he became king. His father had told him only once. It was on the evening before his coronation. They had been standing together in the highest tower, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. His father had looked unusually serious. When the clock reaches midnight, the old king had said, "Do not look outside." Adrian had smiled. Why? His father hadn't answered. Instead, he had placed an old silver key into Adrian's hand. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "never open the black door beneath the eastern staircase." Adrian remembered laughing. At the time, he thought it was an old man's superstition. Years later, he would understand that his father had been afraid. Very afraid. Adrian became king. He married Queen Elara. And for several peaceful years, nothing strange happened. The kingdom prospered. The harvests were generous. The rivers stayed clear. Children played in the palace gardens. At night, lanterns glowed along the streets, and the castle remained exactly where it had always been. Until the night of the great winter storm. The wind screamed around the towers. Snow struck the windows like handfuls of sand. The palace clocks began to tremble. Then, at midnight, every candle in the castle went out. The silence that followed was enormous. Adrian woke beside Elara. "Did you hear that?" She opened her eyes. "Hear what?" He sat up. At first, there was nothing. Then he felt it. A gentle movement beneath the floor. Not an earthquake. Not a tremor. Something much slower. The entire castle was moving. Adrian ran to the window. Elara followed him. And when they looked outside, the kingdom was gone. There were no mountains, no village, no river, no roads. Only an endless white desert beneath a sky filled with enormous blue stars. The castle had moved. For the rest of the night, no one slept. The guards searched every corridor. Servants whispered. The horses refused to leave their stables, and beyond the castle walls stretched a desert that had never existed on any map. The sand was pale silver, the stars were blue, and in the distance stood hundreds of enormous stone figures. They looked like people, but they were taller than towers. Elara stared at them through the window. "Who built those?" Adrian shook his head. "I don't know." Then one of the statues moved, only slightly. Its head turned toward the castle. Elara stepped backward. "Adrian, I saw it." Another statue moved. Then another, slowly, almost peacefully. The giants began turning toward the castle. The king ordered the gates closed. No one was to leave. At dawn, the desert vanished. The mountains returned. The village returned. The river returned. Everything was normal, except for one thing. A single blue grain of sand had appeared on the palace floor. Adrian kept it. He did not tell anyone. The next night, Adrian waited. He sat awake in his study with Elara beside him. The clock moved toward midnight. 11点57分 11点58分 11点59分 Then, midnight. The castle moved again. This time, there was no storm, no warning, no sound. The walls simply seemed to breathe, and the world outside changed. When Adrian opened the window, he saw an enormous forest. The trees were silver. Their branches reached so high that they disappeared into clouds, and hanging from every branch were tiny golden lanterns. Thousands of them, perhaps millions. The forest glowed like a second sky. Elara whispered, "It's beautiful." Then one lantern went out. Another, then another. Slowly, a path of darkness began moving through the forest toward the castle. Adrian closed the window. "Don't look." But Elara was already staring. At the end of the dark path stood a woman. She wore a crown made of branches. And although she was far away, they could hear her voice. "King Adrian." He froze. "How does she know my name?" The woman raised one hand and pointed directly at the castle. 3 nights remain. Then the forest disappeared. The following night, the castle moved again. This time, there was water outside every window. Not rain. Not a flood. An ocean. The entire castle stood beneath the sea. Yet somehow, no water entered. Fish the size of horses drifted past the towers. Transparent creatures floated through the darkness. Far below the castle, an enormous golden city rested on the ocean floor. Its towers were covered in coral. Its streets were empty, and at the center of the city stood a throne. Elara looked down. Someone was sitting on it, a figure wearing a crown. Adrian stared. That cannot be, because the figure looked exactly like him. Not similar, exactly. Same face, same crown, same scar above the eyebrow. The figure slowly raised its head, then smiled. Elara grabbed Adrian's hand. The underwater king stood and pointed toward the castle. His lips moved. Though there was no sound, Adrian somehow understood the words. "You have forgotten why you are here." Then the ocean vanished. That night, the castle moved again. But this time, when midnight arrived, nothing appeared outside. No desert, no forest, no ocean. There was simply darkness. Adrian opened the doors. Beyond the castle stood their kingdom, but everything was frozen. The villagers stood motionless in the streets. Birds hung motionless in the air. Water had stopped flowing in the river. Even the flames of the village lanterns had become still. Then Adrian saw himself. Across the square stood another Adrian, older, much older. Beside him stood another Elara. Her hair was silver. The older king looked toward them. "You are almost out of time," Adrian shouted. "Time for what?" The older king smiled sadly. "To choose which kingdom survives." The castle door slammed shut. The next world was stranger than any before it. There were 2 moons. One was white, the other was black. A purple ocean surrounded the castle, and beyond it was a kingdom built upside down. Towers hung from the sky. Bridges crossed empty air. Trees grew downward, and tiny lights moved between the clouds, like stars searching for somewhere to sleep. Elara walked to the balcony. A small child stood on the opposite tower. She looked up. "Queen Elara." Elara nodded. The child smiled. "You're late." "Late for what?" The child pointed at the black moon. "For the ending." Then she disappeared. Back in their own kingdom, Adrian and Elara searched the castle from top to bottom. They found nothing, until Elara noticed the oldest clock in the palace. It had no hands, no numbers, only a single sentence engraved around its face. "When the castle stops, the door will open." Adrian touched the clock. A hidden staircase appeared. They climbed higher, higher, until they reached a room above the tallest tower. Inside was something impossible. Hundreds of miniature castles. Each one was different. Some stood beneath oceans. Some floated among clouds. Some were surrounded by forests. Some had no sky at all. And each miniature castle had a tiny clock. Elara whispered, "These are all the worlds we've visited." Adrian walked closer. Then he saw one more castle. It was completely black. No windows, no doors, no people, and beside it was a small plaque, "The Last World." That night, the castle moved, but there was no midnight. The clocks stopped at 11:59. The moon disappeared. Every door in the castle opened by itself. Adrian and Elara walked through the eastern corridor. The black door was open. Beyond it was not another room. It was a sky, a vast, endless darkness. And floating in that darkness were pieces of their kingdom. The village, the mountains, the river, the palace gardens, everything they knew, everything they loved, floating like fragments of a broken dream. Then a voice spoke. It was the voice of Adrian's father. "You were never meant to rule this kingdom." Adrian closed his eyes. "What?" His father's voice continued. "You were meant to protect it." Elara understood first. "The castle isn't carrying us through worlds." She looked at the floating pieces around them. "It is holding the worlds together." A figure appeared in the darkness. The woman from the silver forest. The underwater king. The older Adrian. The child beneath the black moon. They were all there, but they were not different people. They were guardians. Each belonged to a different version of the kingdom. The woman spoke. Every kingdom eventually reaches its final night. Adrian asked, "What happens then?" She looked toward Elara. "The king chooses what to keep." Adrian's heart sank. "What do I have to choose?" The woman answered softly, "Everything." Suddenly, Adrian saw his kingdom as it truly was. He saw every road, every house, every person, every birth, every death, every joy, every sorrow, every little moment that made the kingdom what it was. He could preserve it exactly as it had always been. No wars, no aging, no loss, no change. But there was a price. The kingdom would become still. Forever. No child would grow older. No flower would ever fall. No new story would begin. It would be beautiful, perfect, and completely dead. Or Adrian could allow the castle to stop moving. Allow time to continue. Allow people to change. Allow some things to disappear. Allow new things to arrive. Allow the kingdom to become something it had never been before. Elara took his hand. "You don't have to save everything." Adrian looked at her. She smiled. "Just let it live." For the first time in his life, the king understood what his father had been trying to tell him. A king was not meant to stop time. A king was meant to let his kingdom have a future. Adrian turned toward the Black Castle and spoke the only words he could think of. Let it move forward. The clocks began again. 11:59. 1 second passed. Then midnight. The castle moved, but this time it did not move to another world. It moved nowhere. The walls stopped trembling. The stars returned. The mountains appeared. The village lights came alive. The river began flowing. The birds flew, and somewhere in the castle, a single ancient clock began ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Elara rested her head against Adrian's shoulder. "Is it over?" He looked toward the eastern window. "Yes." Then he smiled. "For the first time, I think the castle has finally arrived." Years passed. The kingdom changed. New houses were built. Old towers were repaired. Children grew into adults. Gardens bloomed and eventually faded. People came. People left. Kings became old. Queens became older. And eventually, Adrian and Elara became stories told beside warm fireplaces. But the castle remained exactly where it had always stood, on the black hill, under the silver moon, and sometimes very late at night, when the wind was still, the palace clocks would all stop for exactly 1 second. Just one. Then they would begin again. Tick, tick, tick. The people of the kingdom believed it was nothing, a strange little fault in an old castle. But the oldest servants knew better. They said that if you were awake at midnight, and if you stood quietly enough beneath the eastern staircase, you might hear something behind the black door. Not footsteps, not whispers, not ghosts, only the sound of distant worlds slowly turning in their sleep. And if you listened very carefully, you might hear the castle itself breathing, as though after wandering through countless impossible worlds, it had finally found a place where it could rest. If your own room feels unusually quiet, if the world outside seems very far away, perhaps that is all you need to remember. Not every door needs to be opened. Not every mystery needs an answer. is trying to take you somewhere. Sometimes it is simply finding its way home. If stories like this help you slow down and leave the noise of the world behind for a little while, then you are always welcome here. Here at Fable Glow, there will always be another quiet story waiting for you, another mysterious door, another forgotten kingdom, another journey beneath the moon and stars. So, if you would like to return for more calm fantasy stories, mysterious worlds, and peaceful bedtime journeys for adults, and join us again on another quiet night. But for now, there is nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to understand. Let the castle rest upon its black hill and rest